right here on Channels Television. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. As always, it's been a very busy weekend. Good morning, guys.
Yeah, good morning. It's a brand new day, brand new week, and it's good to be back. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I am Bukola Koga.
Bukola will say, welcome to your perfect morning starter. Welcome to the show, everyone. We're live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly. Giga. It's good to have you back, Bukola, by the way.
Yes, indeed, it's good to be back. Thank you.
Tracker.
And thank you guys for...
Today's August.
Well, the 17th of August, Monday. Yeah.
The tracker is back.
Well, it's a day that the Accord is rejoicing in Osun State as the dancing governor coasted to victory, winning by a very fair margin and defeating the All Progressives Congress and the African Democratic Congress in that contest, where there were about 7 other candidates in the election. And what a weekend it was, guys. What were the high points for you?
Well, politics is local. That's what this game has shown. It's totally local. It shows that the people, when they are determined to do something, there are so many highlights we may not be able to know. There are so many moving parts that played out in this election. But fundamentally, the resolve of the people to be able to say, this is what we want, whether you're comfortable with it or not, they pushed the boundaries. They protected their votes. They watched their votes. So, on one hand, we cannot take away the people's power to make a decision for themselves. Almost 1 million people filed out to vote for candidates of their choice, and Adeleke won by 511,000 plus votes as against his closest contender, Ibamiji, who scored over 400,000 votes. And the margin of lead, I think, was about 60-something thousand. And so if you look at the margin of rejected vote, about 20,000 or so. So you can see there was the people, I've seen videos, guys, of the people following their votes from the World Collation Center to, the other collation centers to ensure that their votes really count. But there are other political intricacies as well. Well, the people, they said they voted accordingly. That's accordingly. So there are other intrigues as well. When it comes to the internal wrangling of the APC, it also played out in this particular election. Somebody like Omishore, who was a national secretary of the party, was not even had the opportunity to even be at the primaries because he was disqualified to be a contestant in this election. That affected them. Someone like Adeleke, who played a key role in 2018, that affected them. So I think the APC leadership in Osun State should ask themselves, do we really have the stature? Because in 2018, the influence of Adeleke perhaps is what pushed, because the first result I think was declared Adeleke won, and then because of 7 polling units that were cancelled and the tight margin of lead when the rerun was done, that was how Oyetola Boyega won that election. So we can say on the back of the strength of Adeleke. By the time he became incumbent governor, he couldn't win the election. So to think he's going to win him in this one through Ambo has his own political stature. Let's not take that away from him. Yeah. He has his influence, but the people know the most are people like Oyetola. So consecutively, Adeleke has shown that in terms of political capacity, he will beat Oyetola any day, whether directly or by proxy.
I like that.
Yeah, no, that's the truth. That's what the outcome has shown us. But we must not also lose sight of the fact that people died in this election, and it's a very sore point, very sour point in this election that people had to lose their lives. It should never happen again. And we have also not forgotten that Senator Fadahunsi's case is still with the police. We'll follow through with all of that. It was a reckless statement that was made. All he needed to do maybe was to apologize, but I doubled down to say it was misquoted. So there are so many moving parts to this particular election. Commendation to the electoral umpire and the police authorities and the security agencies and the CSOs and journalists. So there's so many things we'll explore. ADC, has a lot of work to do. They scored less than 5% or so of the votes. So grassroots, as far as a test case in the Southwest is concerned, ADC has not come to the party.
Kelly.
Let me start by reading out something. Somebody said, those who defeated the APC in Osun State, the person said, whoever was responsible for the hunger in the land, the Edo State's governor, whose ill-advised and insulting outburst against the governor of Osun State only provoked resentment and strengthened Adeleke's support. So whoever authorized the freezing of the Osun State's government accounts, and of course there's Senator Francis Fadon's comments as well. But again, for me personally, thank you to the people of Osun State. I cannot thank you enough for reminding Nigerians of our identity. We are smart, we are brave, we're resilient, we can be very determined and driven. Thank you for reminding the generality of Nigerians that we can do this when we come together as one. I mean, I saw videos of people saying, you know what, we got monies from one of the parties and we used it to buy fish. Somebody said I used to eat for and all of that. I was like, and I still went to vote against the party that collected. I got monies from. Why would you not encourage vote buying and all of that? But I just want to thank the people of Osun State for standing firm and standing strong in the build up to these elections. One would have thought that perhaps they would have stayed away from the elections because of the violence that played out months and months into to August 15 over the weekend. So a lot of persons thought perhaps they would not come out, but you proved us all wrong and you came out to vote, and then you had to stand by your vote. So thank you indeed for doing that for us. I think I just want to charge Mr. Governor that, you know what, I like the fact that in your speech yesterday or on Saturday you've said that you want to transform the states, you want to industrialize the states. I am happy that you have said that. I think you owe the people of Osun State a great deal. So you have 4 years to do that. You have 4 years to make do with your promises. I know that maybe the APC, they are considering legal actions. It may be a distraction for the next few months or thereabouts, but make do with the promises that you have made to the people of Osun State. Prove those people who say that you dance more than you govern. Prove them wrong by ensuring that the people of Osun State, because I like your body language. You remind us that Nigerians are really very happy people. You dance, you smile. In fact, it was only during these elections when your account was freezed and a few other events that played out to the elections that we saw you a bit angry. I saw the town hall as well, one of the media stations, where you're a bit angry and all of that. But apart from those moments, you're largely a very happy person, always dancing and all of that. And my concern is the way you are happy, Mr. Governor, the way you keep dancing. Are the average Nigerians in Osun State, are they as excited as you are? Are they as happy as you are? You have a responsibility to make them happy for the next 4 years, so that they can dance like you dance as well, so they can smile, when they go to their farms, when they go to school or their businesses and all of that. Nigerians are always not asking for much. Just ensure the right environment is created and Nigerians will pick it up from there. So congratulations again, Mr. Adeleke, the dancing governor. He says he's the bulldozer as well. He referred to himself when he had that exclusive interview with our colleague Sharon yesterday. We wish you all the best, but again, remember the people. Some people are criticizing him already because they're saying that while the people stood by you, you were there thanking Mr. President and drumming supports for Mr. President. So it's been drawing a lot of criticisms from that, on those comments that he's made. But again, remember the people, Mr. Governor, for this next 4 years. Prioritize them. I want to see them dance, and I want to see them happy, just the way you also. I
want to cue behind both of you on 2 points, just to tidy things up this morning. First of all, with Jeffrey, because the governor should dedicate this victory to the lives that were lost ahead of this election amid the political violence that played out. Dedicate the victory to those people for many reasons, because they paid the ultimate price, number one. It's a sigh of relief for the governor, but is it a sigh of relief for democracy in Nigeria? Should people be sacrificed on the altar of electioneering, political ambition, and aspiration? And then, on the matter of vote buying. Yes, indeed, the Osun people demonstrated their resolve. We saw total votes cast amounting to over 1.1 million, and that is significant, compared to turnout of the electorate in most elections, either at the general elections or even in staggered off-cycle elections like this one. But then again, the element of vote buying, which according to reports went both ways, or if you like, from other political parties as well. Does it confer legitimacy on whoever has won in this election? Is this the type of democracy that we want in Nigeria, that we're building, that is built on, if you like, corruption? Because these are, state funds that are deployed to the prosecution of election. Is it in line with the dictates of the electoral law in this country, which provides a certain ceiling for the, prosecution of an election? I did a calculation, guys, yesterday on 20,000 naira per vote, multiplying it by the number of votes that went to the candidate of the All Progressives Congress, because there were reports, people came out to say that one political party was sharing 20,000 naira and another political party was sharing 2,500 naira. Now, even if it was half of those numbers that got 20,000 naira, that amounted to about 4.45 billion. Look at that sum and what it would do to education in Osun State, what it would do to health services in Osun State, what it would do to the real sector in Osun State, wealth creation, what it would do to the revamping of education system in Osun State. Look at that sum. Is that the kind of democracy that we want to build in Nigeria? And so the political elite must reflect on this. The electoral umpire must reflect on this. We make arrests time and again during elections, but they never go anywhere in terms of prosecution, in terms of invoking what the electoral law provides for in terms of punitive sanctions for those who are found to be complicit in vote buying in an election. And so I wonder if this victory confers any form of legitimacy to any party in this particular election because of the element of vote buying, which we should continue to condemn as shameful, a shameful part and an all-time low in our democracy.
In fact, there's different dimensions to this, and as we explore the conversation, we're going to see it as well. But the All Progressives Congress as well needs to, how do I put it now? This has shown a few things that I'm sure there are very smart people who are there who are looking at all the issues that are played out. But one of the things I've never liked, guys, is when I see, I don't know, I heard between 10 to 16 governors. I don't know whether they don't have a job in their state. I'm sure they do. Flooding the state, a lot of senators, and it happens in all cycle elections, and it's not an APC thing. Yeah. It's whoever is in power. Everybody just wants to, bring that force. It just shows that politics is local. No matter how powerful you are, sometimes it doesn't go your way. So, on one hand, I think that we should, if there's a way to do away with off-cycle, I will really be glad, so that everybody just faces their zone rather than go, I think the person who got the biggest flags in this whole exercise is the governor of Edo State, because of what he went to say. In fact, people are saying he contributed to the loss of APC because people were fence-sitting where this is not Edo, this is Osun State. You can't come and be insulting our governor. And some people also replied him, like Davido. And of course, this is politics, guys. The governor has also said thank you to the president for allowing democracy to prevail. And he's saying my endorsement of you hasn't changed our son. It has nothing to do with anything. Well, that is politics. But I hope
lost. Will that supposed to be there?
I don't know. But for me, I think again, our democracy is evolving. I think we should get to the point where we don't need to be thanking anybody for allowing democracy to prevail. There shouldn't be a thank you. Yeah, I understand the politics we play now is necessary for its political survival. So you'll be joking if you think it's not important for where we are. But we should build, whether the president likes you, whether the governor is, it doesn't matter. The people decide, and that's it.
As you always say, politicians think differently.
No, they think differently. So forget.
I was going to even ask.
Your upright thinking, your forthright thinking has nothing. It's totally different
I was going to ask
from the orientation of politicians. Yes.
Even the comments about the governors and senators flooding to Osun State. Who bears the cost? Is it the party?
No, it's a mix of course, there's funding for the election. Now, if we do the economics of moving governors, you know, when a governor goes, security goes, his aid, the cars, it's just, I don't know. It's just not nice. It's just not nice. I don't want to go there before they say
we could assume that because the sale of forms, forms part of the critical part of funding for, elections, the prosecution of elections in the country, and the cost of those forms are sinful. When you consider that presidential form, for instance, is 100 million naira, and governorship funds, range between 50 million and thereabout. That is also part of the matter besides the concern about
I just want them to sit.
Buying.
I just want them to sit in their state and govern their state. There's a lot going on in it. If we have a list of the governors, if I have a list of the governors, I'll tell them what is going wrong in each of their states without even doing a research. So there's a lot to face, but it's politics. They say it's supporting the candidate of their choice and all of that. It's within their right. But maybe before we come to the papers, let's take a look at the dance of the governor, where Osun people are going to experience this dance for the next 4 years. Now we'll come to the papers with Mr. Adeleke. Stay with us.
I know that you are one person who expresses himself in some artistic way. If I play music that you love today, will you be able to tell the Nigerians or Nigerians and the world how you feel tonight?
You got it.
Then I'll play you a music.
Let's do it.
I'll play you a music.
All right now.
And we'll see how you do.
Well, that's the dancing governor of Osun State, now re-elected for a second term. Well, let's get to the papers. Mr. Adeleke is right here. You want to dance too?
Well, I'm thanking God it's Monday. You know that. Monday is a special day.
Yes.
So I really actually have reason to dance this morning.
Absolutely. So let's get started. We're all here on Saturday, to take a look at what's playing out in Osun State. There's a lot to unpack. Even this election is going to be talked about for a long time.
Yes.
Given the fact that it's the last election before the general election.
Yes.
So let's go to This Nigeria, the first paper I'll be looking at today. How Action Jackson, that's the way they refer to him on this one, knocked out Ibamiji. Adeleke dances to victory with 511,067 votes to opponents 444,815 votes. Tinubu congratulates winner as APC weighs legal options. Governor thanks President Osun people. Sakitobi.
Well, I don't think the outcome is a surprise per se, because I actually engaged with the people of Osun State quite in depth over the last several months, and they actually like the governor, and they also believe he's done well for them, particularly the civil service. And Osun is a civil service focused state, which in his victory speech he also mentioned the fact that he tried to move the state away from primarily just the civil service and try to industrialize the state. So he did very well for the civil servants. He cleared outstanding salaries, pensions are up to date, although there are some people who would argue that all governors have more money now anyway, and that nobody is actually owing, so we shouldn't, beat our chest that that's a massive achievement. But the bottom line is the people on the receiving end, irrespective of who is there, are happier that their pockets are more robust and they're able to meet their daily expenses compared to when they were owed 2 and 3 and 4 months at a time. So I think this resounding victory is just a reflection of the will of the people, and I'm glad that all the powers that be maintained a neutral role, the police, INEC, even the parties themselves, to where the will of the people was not subverted. I believe that the outcome is a true reflection of what the people wanted. So credit should not just go to Accord and Governor Adeleke on his re-election. I think we should give massive kudos to the security forces as well, because I didn't really hear anything about voter intimidation, voter suppression, all the things we were worried about in the run-up to the election, when we saw the violence, the killing, the maiming, and we should not forget, in spite of the euphoria of the victory, that people actually lost their lives in the middle of this, you know. So we should keep that at the back of our minds while celebrating the victory. But I think it's cause for joy that the elections went off without a hitch, that there was no violence, that INEC maintained neutrality, the police maintained neutrality. Even the party that lost, you're not seeing the usual rancor and bitterness that attends losses. They seem to be gracious in defeat, even though their lawyers are saying, well, we'll study the results and look at what the possibilities are in terms of challenging this, if there's any grounds for it. And that, to me, is an advancement on our democratic evolution, that we can get to a point where the losers will accept defeat, because the election was above board, it was transparent, it was credible. And while we were here on Saturday following the election, we saw people actually monitoring their votes, staying behind at the polling units, following the count, even turning it into a chorus.
Escorting vehicles that are carrying their ballots.
Escorting it all the way. That went to show a lack of trust in the process and in the regulator or in the umpire. It showed a lack of trust. But it also showed that if the people have a concerted desire for their votes to count, they can make it happen. I think what happened in Osun yesterday or on Saturday was what we call people power. People power showed its capabilities, and nobody rested on their laurels and allowed themselves to be trampled over by juggernauts, by political opposition, by even federal might, because there was massive rollout of federal might. In spite of 32 governors, I think 11 or 12 of them were actually in Osun, but the ruling party has 32 governors. In spite of, the president, his ancestral home is said to be in Osun, and he had a real desire to win Osun. First of all, as part of him being able to claim that his people, those from the southwest, are all behind him. So not having Osun is kind of like a dent on his claim to be loved by his own people from that part of the country. So all in all, I think we should, hail and acclaim the outcome, and we should look at it that our democracy is evolving. I heard people saying that in spite of being given money for their votes, that they took the money but still voted their conscience. So perhaps that will become a discouragement to that institution of vote buying when politicians begin to realize that they're actually throwing money away, because people will take the money but still vote the way they want to vote. So why throw your money away when you can use it for more substantive
And the chance from Osun State, following that victory, the declaration of Senator Adeleke as winner of the election, we heard 50,000.
Yes.
And just to translate that means, money has been wasted, 50,000 has been wasted on the election. Does that suggest that that was actually the amount that went per voter in this election?
It's not
Are you
impossible.
that concerned as well, Mr. Kitobe?
It's not impossible. At one point, some years ago, we knew categorically that votes were being bought for 5,000 to 10,000. But at this point, because the stakes were so high in Osun, I don't doubt that the levels of the value of the vote multiplied. And for them to have been saying 50,000 has been burnt up, I don't doubt that some people probably, well, I wouldn't say everybody, because by the time you multiply 50,000 by a million odd voters, or however many you're able to capture, that's a humongous amount of money that they couldn't have raised from selling forms at 50 to 100 million naira. But probably some key people that are viewed as mobilizers, who are influential in their little community centers, may have been paid that much to influence other people. But I think the masses generally, the hoi polloi, may have been bought for less, but some people could have received that much. And it is worrisome that that kind of money can be deployed, as opposed to, the other side of the equation is good governance. They said the governor has done well. he didn't have to really buy any votes. He bought the people's affection with his achievements and the impact on their lives.
Well, we haven't confirmed that.
We want to believe that's what the outcome of the election is telling us.
Let's look at the Nigerian Tribune. It stays with Osun elections. In fact, most of the papers today are leading with the aftermath of the elections. Osun poll, how Adeleke won. Role of resolute Osun people withheld LG funds, salaries, pensions, influence of Deji Adeleke, Davido, others. I think Deji's Davido's father. The Omisore Ife Oshogbo connection. Tinubu says his victory confirmed electorate confidence in him. Atiku Obi, Makinde, PDP, others congratulate him. Wide jubilations in many towns. We are studying election results. APC Adeleke dedicates victory to God. Osun people reiterate support for Tinubu. I'm not sure why the APC or how the APC lost the elections. I wonder whether you think perhaps they got it wrong. And then do you think is it really over for Mr. Governor, because it looks like this is going to perhaps go back to the courts as we see in this part of the world?
The APC lost that election way before Saturday, and I'll tell you why. The moment the drum beats of defeat began to roll was when they imposed the candidate.
Okay.
This Oyebamiji, known as Ambo, was imposed on the party during the primaries. That started when they started disqualifying some of the aspirants. I don't know if you remember that. Omisore, former deputy governor of Osun, was disqualified. This is somebody who's been the deputy governor of the state in the past. He's been a senator. He's been national secretary of that very APC. So if he was qualified enough for all of those roles, how come now he's not qualified to run for governor? He was disqualified. I believe former Governor Oyinlola as well expressed some interest, and he also couldn't pursue the ambition. So there was this sense, if you remember, when the Electoral Act had just passed and there was this thing about consensus or direct primary. And at that point, not just the APC but most other parties took that consensus and didn't follow the Electoral Act. They took consensus to be imposition. And so Oyebamiji was imposed. I understand he was former Governor Oyetola's preferred candidate, and he was imposed upon the people. So that caused grievance. People like Omisore were aggrieved. People like Oyinlola were aggrieved.
Ajibola Bashir was also aggrieved, the national secretary of the APC.
Well, no, I saw him actually working for the APC's victory.
Do you think that some of those aggrieved may have covertly worked against the APC in this election?
Not necessarily covertly.
Former Governor Omisore.
Well, we understand that he actually turned his structure over to Accord, even though he didn't leave the party.
Former governor, for the records.
Former deputy governor. We understand he actually turned over his structure and more or less encouraged his people to go the Accord way. Because, you know, the thing about it is, if you feel like you've been treated unfairly, how do you now openly turn around and support the same people who shafted you? In politics, it doesn't work that way. Even though on the surface he didn't leave the party, but his spirit was no longer in favor of that party for that election. So his body was there, but his mind and his heart were elsewhere.
I think the political element we may be missing is Adegbeshola. Some may have said his influence has waned, but this election, ADC is still trying to get their acts together.
Yes.
When Adegbeshola was in APC, even the president knows that the game is the game. Whether it's Ali Mosho in Lagos or in the state itself, despite his governance with a lot of checkered background in terms of paying or not paying salaries. So do you think that element as well just shows that there are too many wranglings in terms of stature that really don't weigh as much as they expect that played out in this election?
Without a doubt, Adegbeshola is still a major factor in Osun politics. You can't take that away from him. So by the time you look at all the various power centers, you look at, of course, Adeleke on the one hand, you look at, as we said, Omisore, you look at Adegbeshola, there's Oyinlola, there's even Baba Akonde, former national leader of the APC, who's also from Osun State and also played a key role in supporting the APC. So there were many different forces pulling against each other on the side of the APC, and that may have affected the outcome of the election in the end. But I think there are lessons to be learned. The ADC didn't do as well as they hoped, but at least they showed up on the radar screen. They got 11,000 votes as a new party. They made an entrance into the political sphere. They would have liked to have done better than they did, but I think they will learn some lessons from this. And a lot of people thought the Aregbesola influence would have propelled ADC to a better showing, but like Jeff said, ADC is still relatively new, doesn't really have a national structure, it's still building its foundation. So I think what mattered most was for it to show up. At least among the top three, it can claim it showed up and now begin to build from there for 2027.
Well, we wonder if that, is significant of what is to come in the 2027 elections, because the ADC is poised to win the election and take over the top job from Mr. President. That's another kettle of fish entirely. But all the papers this morning are awash with how victory went to the way of Accord Party, and we're headed to New Telegraph this morning. The New Telegraph. Oshun Guba, the forces behind Adeleke's second term victory. And we see some riders there. Governor's victory, fitting assurance, democracy will flourish in Nigeria. Of course, that's coined from the president's speech, who has congratulated the governor. Kalu hails Adeleke, says Tinubu's prospects in Oshun very bright despite APC's loss. Adeleke thanks God, Oshun people, seeks peace, unity, woos opponents, and residents' jubilation as 50,000 naira gone down the drain song rents the air. And we're studying poll results to determine next line of action that's ascribed to Oshun APC. Atiku will congratulate Adeleke. I'm drawing from that, and of course the first insight that the New Telegraph has provided this morning. We see commendations coming from Atiku and Obi, who are saying in other ways that this is a victory for democracy. And the first insight here says governor's victory, fitting assurance, democracy will flourish in Nigeria. Is this evidence of the electoral umpire's impartiality in this election, and by extension its independence to be guaranteed in the general election in 2027? Or should we view INEC's stance in this election in isolation, and especially when you weigh that against the comments coming from the opposition presidential candidates?
Well, the opposition presidential candidate are obviously delighted with this outcome, because it shows that the incumbent is not invincible. Even with federal might, it's not invincible. Now all of a sudden, incumbency has shown that if you perform and the people love you, federal might has no meaning, which gives the opposition hope that they can take on the incumbent in 2027, as long as their ducks are all lined up in a row properly. They can actually, compete head on with the incumbent. So it gives them hope, it gives them encouragement. They're happy, but in terms of the impartiality of the umpire, I prefer to believe that, I won't say they're impartial or they're not impartial, but I think what happened in Oshun simply was because the people were all unified around a cause. It would have been impossible to subvert their will. I mean,
it was beyond INEC's control.
Absolutely. They could not have tried to do anything in any way to subvert the outcome, because the people were fully engaged, fully present, rabidly engaged. They were completely in the process, that you couldn't have tampered with one single vote and left there with your person intact. They would have ripped people to shreds, because they were so engaged and so enthusiastic and so committed to seeing that their will prevails, that even if INEC had any untoward motives whatsoever, I'm not saying they did, even if they did, they buried them right there and then, because they just had to read the room, feel the temper of the people, and realize that if we want to leave out of here with our lives intact, we better not try and do anything. So let's not commend INEC too much as being impartial. Let's commend the people of Oshun as having not allowed INEC the opportunity to be partial if it wanted to be.
I almost called you honorable. You're seeing the future.
Maybe that's a prophecy. Is that a prophecy, Mr.
There are so many
Chieftain?
honorables. We deal with a lot of honorables, so if I call you distinguished, just take it. Mr. Adeleke, to me, thank you so much for coming on the program.
My
We really
pleasure.
appreciate it.
My
Thank you
pleasure,
for bringing your expertise as well.
Thank you for
We have a long conversation on the program today. We're going to talk to people who are on ground, the political parties themselves. One is joining us from Abuja, the other will join us virtually at different times, but stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the program, everyone. Today, Osun State dominates the conversations here on the morning brief. Let's get straight to it. Honorable Bamidele Salam is a member of the House of Reps. He's also the DG of the campaign for the governor-elect now. Mr. DG, sir, thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us. DG Media and Publicity of the Ademola Adeleke's campaign. Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to us here on the program.
Thank you very much for having me. Good morning.
You're all smiles. You're all smiles, and I imagine it is joy unspeakable for you. Because
absolutely
months and months, 3 months of intensive campaigns. You were here on this platform on numerous occasions, and all of that. So congratulations, perhaps absolutely in order for you and your team.
Thank you.
So
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Walk us through the playbook or your master plan. How did you get this done, you and your team?
All right. Well, the first is for us to return all the glory and the thanksgiving to the Almighty God, the one who does all things, the one who has who enthrones. And also to really commend the very gallant people of Osun State. If I tell you there's any magic behind this victory, apart from God and the people of Osun, I'll be telling you a lie. The people of Osun have been very gallant, they have been very determined, they have been very committed. They have shown that they can actually stand by whatever they believe in. This is actually the history of the people of Osun. If you remember very well, year 2014, when Governor Adeleke was also seeking a re-election, we had something very similar, although not as intense as what we had this time around. So I want to give it to the people of Osun State. The governor, one, made sure that he did not disappoint the confidence that they reposed in him when they elected him in 2022. He made sure that he lived by the expectations, by impacting on lives of people of Osun in every nook and cranny of the state. And they, in return, also decided that they wanted him to continue to be their governor, and they resisted all the pressure, all the intimidation, all the threats, all the inducements that was brought in against the return of the governor. So I want to say that the master stroke actually is that the people stood their ground to defend democracy, to stand with the governor, and to ensure that they vote and their vote counts. So that is where the real credit must actually go.
So, Honorable, should we say now that INEC is unbiased, is fair, has come to the party for the people to trust the democratic institution, part of which INEC is a significant part of, how do I put this question differently now? Because we've seen voters, follow their votes. They watched the vote when it was counted. We've also seen them follow the vote all the way to the collation centers and all of that. On one hand, people are saying that is lack of trust in the process. Now that this result is out, should we say we are confident in INEC?
Well, let me tell you, there's this quote that says the eternal price of liberty is vigilance. The truth, and this is the frank truth about our country, is that we have not built institutions that can be trusted. It's very sad, but that's the truth. INEC, police, whatever institution you talk about, we have not built any institution. I'm not sure there's one that can be entirely trusted to live up to expectation. Yes, I will give it to the national chairman of the INEC, Professor Josh Amupiton. Only God sees the heart of man, but sincerely speaking, each time he engaged with stakeholders, each time he spoke about the governorship election in Osun, I see in him a man who actually wanted to prove a point. I see in him a man who meant what he said. But he's just one man. The chairman is just one man. So when you come down, to all the structures of INEC, there are quite a number of people who ordinarily will have caved into the kind of pressure that they were under. People who will have done things untoward, who will have done things to derail the process at one point or the other. But like I said, it is the people, who decided that they were going to be vigilant. They were going to stay all through, no matter what it cost. I had never before stayed throughout collation process in my polling unit. I'm talking of the unit. I stayed in my unit until the votes were counted with all my people. I moved together with them to my ward, showing leadership, so that everybody who voted stayed at the collation center. The same thing to the local government, and then finally at the state, collation center. So I think the price of liberty is vigilance. When people are vigilant, they are able to put systems and structures and institutions on check. It is unfortunate we have not been able to build that kind of institution that you can just go home and sleep with your two eyes closed, that the judiciary, the parliament, the executive, and all the institutions of government will do right. Unfortunately, we have not. So, but like I said, the chairman of INEC, whom we interacted with at certain forum, who spoke about the preparedness of the commission, giving commitment. What I saw in him was a man who wanted to do things right, and I must be very fair to him as a person. But that does not mean anything. Only God knows the true intent of man. But I said that the people's vigilance is what actually made this institution called INEC to live up to the expectations of the public.
Honorable Salam, well, I don't know how you're going to respond to the reports around vote buying and incentives. There are those who say, people paid 50,000 naira, 20,000 naira, 2,500 naira, and all of that. So it's more like a case of the highest bidder. So confirm for us how much Accord Party paid. And then my second question to you, Honorable Salam, would be, in terms of strategy, we hear that your party perhaps took advantage of the cracks in the APC. For instance, the missionary factor, we hear that he collapsed his structure into a court party. Perhaps he didn't come out openly to say that he was supporting your party, but it looks like you guys took advantage of the cracks in the APC. Is that correct, please?
All right, so let me start off with the issue of the vote buying, and I thank God that the channel television had its crew on ground. I saw Shion Kimbaloyi and a few other of your crew members around who went from one local government to the other, and other television stations. And you can ask, Accord Party never spent 1 naira on that election day. The other party, threw caution to the wind. I have never seen an election that is so monetized like we had on Saturday. In my own polling unit, they were sharing up to 30,000 naira, 50,000 naira, and the same thing happened almost everywhere in the state. In fact, we had intelligence about when they brought in this heavy cash on the eve of the election. Alerted the police, alerted the security agencies. Only very few of the security agencies took any step. That was what happened in Ward 10 of my local government, where they seized cash and arrested persons who were distributing money. And again, you will remember that very viral video of what happened in the Jibo local government. That's also my federal constituency, where citizens took it upon themselves to enforce the law against vote buying, and went into a particular house where they were, sharing money, and seized wads of naira notes and voters card, which the APC, was deploying in the Jibo. I think this is the video of that place, where they seized that cash. Citizens took it upon themselves when the security personnel refused blatantly. In fact, whenever anybody complained to them that who were Bible, they would say, well, that's not their business. They are here to maintain the peace. They never took any action. We never found the EFCC team, anywhere enforcing, the law against vote buying. But in spite of all that, I'm sure that was exactly what brought down that margin to that, to that extent, because in highly populated places like Oshogbo, Ile-Ife, and so on, they went as far as 70,000 naira per vote. Very brazen, very, very shameful. Now, coming to the second part of the question on whether we took advantage of the crack in the APC, of course, we are politicians, and that is one of the strategies of a good, of good politics everywhere in the world, that you study the weakness of your opponent and you take advantage of them. We saw from the beginning the choice of their candidate. The process that led to the choice of that candidate was very undemocratic, was very divisive, and they never took any concrete step to even do any genuine reconciliation. That was worsened by the way the APC took and picked candidates for the National Assembly, for the state houses of assembly. People who won primary for the state house of assembly in many local governments were changed, arbitrarily by the party. And as smart politicians, we had to come in and take advantage of that. Even though, His Excellency Otomayola Mishode never joined our party and never issued any statement to say he was supporting us. Members of his group, of course, came out in their large numbers to decamp to the accord, believing that they had been cheated and that we should join together to rescue this state from those who do not mean well for the state. So, to answer that question, I answer in the affirmative. We took advantage of the cracks in the APC, which is the sensible thing, the smart thing for any politician, to do. And we thank God that it's paid off for us as a political party.
So a quick follow-up to that, and that's before I come in with my main question. Does that mean that had you not taken advantage of that particular gap, in the camp of the APC, the election could have gone either way? Does it mean that Governor Adeleke would not have won by that margin, or that the election could have gone either way to the APC or to the Accord party? That's on the one hand. On the other hand, about vote buying, there are reports that the Accord party also induced voters with a minimal sum of 2,500 naira.
Oh, no. Let me start with the last one. Absolutely, we did not induce any voter. Like I said, observers and those who went on ground knew those who were involved in vote buying, and those were the APC party men. They actually had the money. You don't forget that in Osun State they have seized our funds, local government fund, for almost 2 years now. Apart from the support that the Adelekes personally had to give to the party to run the campaign, there's even no that kind of money that you can take around and start dishing out money to voters on election day. But the goodwill, which is what counts even far more than money, is always there. Now, to the first part of the question on whether, if we are not taking advantage of the crack within the APC, we will have won. Yes, absolutely, the governor will have won. Anyone who did a survey in Osun in the last 1.5 years, in the last 2 years, on the probable outcome of this governorship election, will tell you most sincerely that Governor Adeleke is immensely popular, immensely loved by the people. He is one governor, who, how do I put it, has not really been, gubernatorial in quotes. He doesn't carry himself like most Nigerian politicians, most big men in power carry themselves, putting themselves out of the reach of the common man. Governor Adeleke is one man you will find in the most unlikely places, in the market, in the school, you just find him everywhere, joking with people, playing with them, dancing with them. And this is what the average person wants. And in addition to that, he feels the pulse of the people, and he's a compassionate leader. He's a man who feels the pain of the people and determined that he was going to impact on them using the opportunity of being the governor of the state. So there is this bond between him and the people of Osun, between him and the traditional rulers, between him and the Islamic leaders, the Christian leaders. He's just everywhere. He goes to the mosque, you see him, praying, you see him amongst them, in the Ramadan period, beating the Bandari Islamic drum. You see him in church the next time, he's praise worshiping God, he's rolling on the floor, and he's not pretentious about it. That is just who he is. He's a man who is very free with everyone. So even if we had not had those cracks within the APC, and we had gone all out on this campaign, he still will have emerged victorious in this governorship election.
Let's go to another very significant significant fallout of this victory, which is Governor Adeleke restating his commitment to President Tinubu in the 2027 elections, his loyalty. And we heard over the weekend, after the declaration of the victory of the Accord Party, your camp debunking any agreement with the APC. Is that really, the case, and the Accord Party camp is just trying to deflect from that particular agreement with the APC? Is that the reason the president has congratulated Governor Adeleke on this victory? Is there an agreement between both camps for the Accord Party to vote the president in the 2027 election?
Okay, let me state this very categorically today on this TV. I am not aware that there was any agreement anywhere between the Accord and the APC to support the president, re-election. When you talk about agreement, you talk about two groups sitting together to draw up terms of working together. Of course, if there had been an agreement, you wouldn't have this kind of very vile, opposition that we had in Osun. You wouldn't have this kind of very tense campaign that we had, very rancorous electioneering process. You remember very well, the leader of the APC in Osun, the Honorable Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, came on air to say that even if you endorse us 10 times, we will still snatch this governorship from you. He was very unfazed about it. He said, it doesn't matter, don't go about saying you endorse us, you endorse the president. That having been said, the Adelekes that I know are men and women of honor. Now you will remember that on the occasion of Eid al-Fitr festival about over a year ago, the governor and his elder brother and Davido went to meet with the president in Lagos to rejoice with him on the festival when he came on break. And at that point, at that forum, they told the president that they believe very strongly that the process of the principle of power rotation between the north and the south must be respected. And because this is a southerner who is the president, sitting president, who is just about to complete 4 years, it is only fair that he be supported to return. And the governor, every occasion he says this, even though there are some party men who are not very comfortable with this, but as the leader of the party, people respect him. And he tells them, well, I have told the president we are going to do this. No, don't mind the fact that, they have been very desperate, they have been very, baleful, they have been very vindictive. Let's just, honor the word we have given unto them. So the president, the governor of Osun, Adeleke, is only being true to himself by saying, well, I had given this man my word that in Nigeria we have a principle of a north-south power rotation. The president today is from the southern part of the country. He is also particularly from the southwest. Has some, historical link with Osun State. Let's honor the word we have given him. But in terms of talking about agreement, anybody who says that is being deceptive. There's no such agreement. If there was an agreement, you will not have the APC coming with 30-something governors, with all their senators and everyone, and posting that they were going to start. And they tried it up till 1 a.m. Up till 1 a.m. of the 16th of August. They were still strategizing, putting pressure on INEC, giving various options, declare the election inconclusive, take away this vote, do this, do that, up till 1 a.m. before, all plans cracked. And that was when the president stepped in to call the governor and say, well, you know what, congratulations, I've gotten a report that, the election is concluded. That was when, all their foot soldiers and top leaders who were in Osun began to leave Osun one after the other in accordance with the word of the Lord. The Lord has told us that as they came, they will leave shamefully. And we thank God Almighty, and we thank the people of Osun. We thank God for confirming His word, and we thank the people of Osun State for standing by the governor. So there was no such agreement, but the governor, in his own nature, and the nature of the Adelekes, believed that they should support the cause of a southern president, the cause of a Yoruba president, and that was why the governor continues to push this narrative. Every time he has an opportunity to speak about 2027.
So let me ask a political question. Did APC lose this election, or did they come just to make an impression ahead of 2027, if you get my drift? That's question number one. Question number two, there are more concerns in terms of governance. The APC is still running the local government, and it's been a very tumultuous relationship between the state and the local government in terms of funding and payment of teachers' salary. What is the conversation going forward?
Thank you very much. Very, very important question. But let me quickly take the first part. Of course, the APC lost this election. They lost this election because they are not on ground. They are not acceptable. They are not popular. They had 12 years of governance in Osun, and every stratum of this state has a very, very sad story to tell about those 12 years of governance of the APC in Osun. So they lost this election, clear and simple. Now let me come to the second part. The second part is one of the most painful trajectory of our political, system in Nigeria. Now you talk about the local government system. What is the fact about the local government system? The local government system in Osun is a product of the Nigerian Constitution. It's a product of the law. And as we speak, there are three major judgments of the court. The Federal High Court judgment, the Court of Appeal judgment, nullifying the so-called election held by Mr. Adeleke after he lost his re-election in 2022, a hurriedly packaged election, nullified by courts of competent jurisdiction. The only reason why they continue to occupy those local governments was because they believe in their federal might. A compromised police system, very, very sad. A compromised police system that had judgment of the courts that they ought to enforce, but threw it away and stood ground protecting illegal occupants of local government in Osun, whose election had been nullified. Now let me tell you the last one that happened very recently, just about 6 weeks ago. These same people went back to the Federal High Court to tell the Federal High Court that the Federal Court should pronounce that they had a tenure which had not expired. The Federal High Court, sitting in Osogbo about 6 weeks ago, gave a judgment and categorically stated that the occupant of local government secretariat in Osun had no subsisting tenure, that if any, that tenure had expired since the month of October 2025. You know what? This judgment was served on the police. In fact, the governor personally handed over a copy to the Inspector General of Police in my presence to the IGP when he came to Osun. This is a court judgment that says this book cannot. Please enforce this judgment. As today, that judgment is still being disregarded by the Nigeria police. So that was what has put pressure on the state government, that the governor, believing that one of the things they wanted to achieve was that he would not be able to pay local government salary and staff salary, primary school teacher salary, basic health care provider salaries, decided that every month he was taking from the state government allocation to pay these people, because the funds meant for local government have been seized and warehoused in the UBA. The government went to court, got a judgment compelling the UBA to release this money to democratically elected local government chairman. The UBA refused because the UBA management was afraid of federal might also coming heavily on them. This is part of the impunity that we have endured for these years. This is part of the abuse of power, abuse of position that we have endured, only because we have a minister in Osun who has a relationship with the president and who boasts about that relationship every time he speaks to his party members as the reason why things will not be done in accordance with the law, in accordance with the Nigerian Constitution. We are hoping that now that the election, that they were doing all these things because they believe they will use that to cripple government and win sympathy and then weaken the governor and the party and win the election. Now the election has come and gone. Adeleke has won his re-election for another 4 years beginning from November. We do hope that now reason will prevail. We do hope now that the rule of law indeed will prevail in Osun rather than the rule of man, and they will allow the third tier of government, the local government system, to run as it should, release funding for local government to the state, so that things will continue to go, as it should.
Yeah. You said the rule of law has prevailed, and you know you're a lawyer, and the APC is already considering legal actions. You know how in this part of the world, if victory does not stop at the polls, on the ballot, it has to go to the courts. I hope you and your party are gearing up for that.
Well, it is within their right to go to court. We cannot deny them of that right, but we want to tell them that wherever they go, they will fail. They will certainly fail. Adeleke will still prevail. The accord will prevail. The governor will be sworn in November, and by the mercy of God, he will rule for another 4 years. And he will do much more than he had done in the first term to improve on the fortune of this very wonderful state. I can give you that assurance, my dear brother.
All right. Honorable Bamidele Salam is a member of the House of Representatives. He's also the chairman, Media and Publicity Adeleke Campaign Organization. He's also a lawyer and journalist. I hope you still remember being a journalist, Honorable. For those who don't know.
I do, and I'm very proud of that. I miss the media. It's a very great field to work in.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations again to you and your team.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, this is the morning brief. Today we stay again with Osun State as we just in the aftermath of that polls there and try to see how we can review what played out on August 15. One of the major players in that election is the ADC and the APC. We reached out to the APC. They are not ready to speak with us just yet, but the ADC is here. They didn't just come third. Some would say they came a distant third. Buki.
Yes, indeed, Kelly. And joining us now is lawyer, public affairs analyst, columnist, and of course, he's the official spokesperson of His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, former vice president and presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress. Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo is live for us from our Abuja studio. Mr. Okonkwo, good morning, sir, and welcome to the morning brief.
Yeah, good morning, and it's my pleasure being here again. And good morning, viewers from wherever you're watching.
So we've spoken to the winners, and now we are with you, the ADC. Your party scored just a little over 17,000 votes, a distant, very distant third. And for a party that is positioning itself to take over the top job from Mr. President, some would say the morning shows the day. Despite the Aregbesola effect, the ADC couldn't pull its weight.
Well, first of all, let me congratulate the Osun people for this wonderful victory. It was very decisive. Let me also extend my congratulations to Governor Ademola Adeleke of the Accord Party. You know, the Osun people refused to succumb to the blackmail of intimidation, of manipulation, of political banditry, political hegemony that the Aso Rock landlord wanted to foist on them. And they came out with a decisive victory. If you recall, Osun people were arrested, they were jailed, they were injured, they were killed. But they resisted. They did not succumb to all those banditry. If you will recall again, Osun people, unfortunately, they unleashed the ministers against them, unleashed the governors against them, unleashed the legislators from the highest level of the Senate president and the Speaker of the House of Representatives against them, unleashed all the apparatus of state against them. But yet, they did not buckle. They came out and defended their votes and came out with a salutary result, showing that the power of the people will always be greater than the people in power. Of course, according to Atiku Abubakar, this is a forerunner of what 2027 is going to be like. And he also said another important lesson is that this is the manifestation of how the resolve of the people to stand and defend their votes will always lead to an end to rigging, to vote buying and other electoral malpractice. Well, you know that naturally there is always this issue about elections, and then wherever two parties are dominant, you'll discover that it's always very difficult for a third party or other parties to take over wherever two parties are dominant. Let us be realistic. In Osun State, you have the ruling party, which is our court party, and you have the federal might, which even the Osun State governor had to pant to survive their onslaught. Our own polling unit, you recall that before the election, Rauf Adegbeshola, they threatened to arrest him in the polling unit of our candidate. If you remembered, they tear gassed them, they chased them away. Polling unit, his own polling unit. He had to come back to even contest election. Remember, even before the election, the account of Osun State government was frozen. So then you can imagine all the other parties. So please, that is the forerunner of 2027, and all the opposition parties, you know, will work together for 2027 and deliver Atiku Abubakar as the next president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Wow.
Our performance was very commendable because we didn't have the state apparatus in the state, we didn't have the federal government apparatus, and as you can see, the state government through Honorable Salam, you can see all the things they passed through, even with the apparatus of state. Then you can imagine ADC that didn't have any apparatus of state, whether state or federal. But at least we are happy that the opposition has proved a point. But let me make this important point very clearly. I am not congratulating INEC whatsoever for what happened in Osun State. Why am I saying that? Professor Mahmood organized a very good election in Osun State in 2022. And the opposition relaxed. And they thought that would be how 2023 election will be. And in 2023 election, he still went forward to glitch the election and deliver a very flawed election. So the opposition should not let down their guard. I am telling you, and I'm saying this with every sense of responsibility, the election of Osun State in 2026 is worse than the election of Osun State in 2022. If you recall, the Honorable Salam said, till 1 a.m., they continued attempting to subvert the election. By 8 p.m., they suspended the uploading of results on IREF. And nobody has come out to tell us why. And they must come out to tell us why. So there is still apprehension. And I'm telling you that the performance of INEC is not to be applauded. It is to be questioned. Why did they suspend the uploading of the results by 8 p.m. of Osun election? And then Osun people had to fight. They had to go to collation centers. Do you know to the build up of the Osun election, more than 50 persons were killed. Not one person ought to be killed. More than 100 injured. Not one person ought to be injured. Of course, no politician's ambition is worth the blood of any Nigerian. I am speaking as President Jonathan spoke. So we are not there yet, and the opposition should rather prepare very much. And you know why? Anytime APC loses the Osun election, they get into a panic mode, and they will now prepare all the arsenals to attack the opposition in the general election, because that result is a manifestation of the complete loss of confidence in APC. They lost, and they will lose again in 2027.
Yeah, Mr. Bobo, I know that. Yeah,
vote and defend their votes.
I know that you've talked about the fact that even the ruling party in the state had to fight with their life to be able to survive. So, not to talk about the ADC.
Yes.
So the data is showing us that the ADC is not on ground as far as Osun is concerned in this election. Less than 5% of the vote when you compare it to the winner. So two questions in one. And this is a test case in the Southwest. the person you speak for actually won Osun State in the last presidential election. So I want you to juxtapose that with this result and what you think the chances are. But on the other part, the flip side is, I think politicians, it's important that you prepare for sabotage, you prepare for this onslaught. The APC is not going to sit still. It will deploy anything and everything, sometimes legal or illegal when necessary, if we're not careful, because we have weak institutions. And this is what political parties do when they're in charge. How is the ADC preparing? Let's say this is a test case, that the ADC have looked at Osun State and say, okay, this is why we lost, and we're going to come at this 2027 election this way. What is the approach that we should be looking at from the ADC?
We are going to adopt the Osun formula.
Which is?
The Osun formula, which is match APC, polling unit by polling unit, in whatever they decide to bring. Now, Senator Fadehunshi, permit me for that pronunciation. Is it Fadehunshi? This is Okoroma. So, okay, you know what he said? And I saw this on Davido's X account. He said, and permit me to say that that is exactly the formula APC is going to adopt, because he's a senator of the Federal Republic and he said the mind of ADC or APC. Now, he said on election day, whether they come out with their voters card or not, we will not allow them to vote. From now onwards, every Accord member that comes out, kill them. I give you the authority to kill them. This is a federal government election. This is his words. And obviously, this is what APC is planning for in 2027. So we have learned from this statement that we are not expecting INEC conducted election in 2027. We are expecting a federal government conducted election. And of course, President Tinubu has said all is fair in politics. So you can corroborate him from 2023 when he told you, you don't serve power a la carte, you grab it, you snatch it, and you run away with it. So we are going to plan to withstand them from the polling unit, from snatching our result and running away with it. And let us sound a note of advice and warning. Osun result has proved that there is nothing like technical glitch, except it is an INEC manufactured technical glitch. There is nothing like being incapable of transmitting from the polling unit onto the IRF portal every election result in real time. Because like I always say, you don't need network to transmit. Network is only to download. So no presiding officer should give any excuse whatsoever that there is no network. In Osun State, from every part of Osun, no matter how remote it is, they transmitted. So we are going to hold every presiding officer responsible for whatever is going on in the polling unit. If you know you are not ready to conduct free and fair election, stay in your house so that you will not be glitched. Because any glitch is intentionally orchestrated to rig election. We are going to match them polling unit by polling unit. We are going to match them. If they want to kill, they will be killed. It is legitimate law that self-defense requires. Whoever wants to kill you, you have the right to defend yourself.
Please, we will not be calling for violence. I'm sure you're not calling for anarchy. So we can be measured, Mr. Okonkwo.
I stand by what David is saying.
So we can be measured. You know,
bloodshed.
We're on international television, so we need to be measured in our remarks.
We want, yes, this is what the young Davido said, and that is exactly what I subscribe to. He said, we don't want bloodshed, we don't want intimidation. We want transparency, we want peace, and we want free and fair election. But the law allows me to defend myself if you want to kill me.
All right, Mr. Okonkwo.
So the opposition will not put their neck for you to kill them.
All right.
Because a man has told you he authorized people to kill every Accord member.
Mr. Okonkwo, well,
do you want the Accord members to leave their neck to be killed?
We'll leave that for the security agencies. Nigerians are still watching to see what will be the outcome of the invite to distinguished Senator Francis Fadonwusi. I'm glad that you're a lawyer, so you know how this works.
Remember,
but I'm also so that I can squeeze in as many questions as possible.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, land on your thoughts. Land on your thoughts, please.
Okay, I was saying that the senator said that 2027 will be a federal government election. Please, the federal government has no power under our law to do anything about election. So any attempt for the federal government to interfere in any election will be roundly resisted. He also said that even if you come with your voter's card, we will not allow you to vote. Every Nigerian that comes with his voter's card must insist that he votes, and not only that he votes, he must stay there and defend his votes. This is his fundamental human right, and democracy means that people should be allowed to freely vote, and people's votes should be allowed to count. So we are going to ensure that, and we're preparing for that as opposition parties and the coalition.
All right. Well, in terms of significance of this particular off-cycle elections, there are those who say that, you know what, this is perhaps a dress rehearsal for major players because it builds up to 2027 and all of that. But again, 17,180 votes. That's what your candidate scored, Najim. And there are those who are a bit worried because when they think about the fact that your party has a former governor, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, and you compare it with 17,180 votes. Again, your party, when I followed that rally, your party stakeholders and chieftains, they all boasted that it was only your party that had the presidential candidates visit Osun State, Osogbo, for the campaigns, and that the final rally just ahead of the election. So, you know, and all of those, your top leaders were there. His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar was there, David Mark was there, and all of that. You know, so those who are just wondering, what kind of weight or impact did that really have in terms of supporting your candidate, Salam, to do well at the polls?
Oh, well, maybe you forgot too quickly that the coming into power of His Excellency Governor Adeleke 1.0, that Atiku Abubakar went to Osun State, raised his hand, campaigned for him, and was part of the people that helped him to come into power for the first time in Osun State. So the political influence and affluence of Atiku Abubakar looms large. So he is actually the foundation of Governor Adeleke as the overarching power that helped him to come to power.
Mr. Okonkwo,
like I told you.
Yeah, Mr. Okonkwo,
yes.
Just as you respond, that is even part of the argument. There are those who even think that Alhaji Atiku Abubakar raised his hands behind the scenes and only went to Osogbo to raise the hands of Najim. That's why it was quick to congratulate him. The likes of another chieftain in your party, Chief Dele Momodu, also had support for their court party, his brother and friend, the governor. So perhaps that's the part of the argument.
Well, like I told you, the foundation of Adeleke's political relevance and coming into power can be rooted in Atiku Abubakar, and that tells you his overarching power on the political hemisphere of Nigeria. And when Adeleke came into power through that influence, PDP was not even the power at the center. So that tells you how politically affluent and influential that Atiku Abubakar is. And let me tell you, earlier in this program, I told you that politics is always governed by two major political forces. And I said, in this instance, recall, we went into a coalition and PDP became moribund. And so such affiliations will always bring in initial, adjustments, and distortions, which takes time to build. The most important thing is that the opposition won in Osun State, built on the foundation of the political influence that Atiku Abubakar rendered when it was established. And our performance will be greeted with joy within the framework that opposition still won. Tinubu's congratulatory message came even faster than Atiku Abubakar's own. So Atiku Abubakar is a quintessential Democrat who will respect democratic norms. Governor Adeleke won, and he congratulated Adeleke because he won decisively. ADC is built on rule of law, is built on respect for democratic principles. I can tell you without mincing words that if the outcome of 2027 reflects the will of the Nigerian people, ADC will do the needful. So Atiku Abubakar did the needful, and I am so proud of what he did.
Mr. Okonkwo, I doubt that you have, answered the question satisfactorily, because former Governor Aregbesola lost his polling unit regardless of whatever intimidation that may have come through. He scored a dismal 13 votes. And despite Mr. Momodu's loyalty to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, he didn't reward Alhaji Atiku Abubakar at this very critical time with support for the ADC candidate. He expressed support for his longtime friend and ally, the incumbent in Osun State. And so, if that is the case, what strategy can you convince Nigerians, about, that the ADC plans to deploy to win the elections in 2027?
Well, when I came in here, you rightly introduced me as the official spokesperson of Atiku Abubakar, not the official spokesperson of Osun State gubernatorial candidate. So you should even be very happy that I even gave you the answers that I gave to you. Gubernatorial election is not the same thing with presidential election. Presidential election is 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. Rauf Aregbesola, as a matter of fact, and I'm telling you this as a statement of fact, I had to call him personally on the night of the election. I said, Your Excellency, where are you? I heard that your head is being haunted. Are you safe? I had to do that. And we raised the alarm that he was to be arrested. And you know what it would have been? So, and he told me, Ken, we are trying to play safe. So I want you to understand the terrible situation. 50 persons were killed before then. And I'm telling you that we did not have state power. We did not have federal government power. And I'm telling you that in the presidential election, APC has already been defeated. With all their ministers, with all their legislators, with all their governors in Osun State, they were decisively defeated. Who will vote for 1,300 and something for price per liter of fuel? Who will vote for 1,400 naira to dollar? When they inherited about 190 something fuel price and inherited about 500 naira, as in naira to a dollar. Who is going to vote for incurable insecurity around Nigeria? Who is going to vote for high cost of transportation? ASU is now on strike. Everything is collapsing. Yet, this government that suspended fuel subsidy is the same government that is borrowing us into slavery. Who is going to vote for that? Osun people rejected APC roundly, and that's the most important point that they communicated, as the Nigerian people will reject APC on the national level. So I'm trying to tell you that we are celebrating what happened in Osun because it will be the dress rehearsal. It is the dress rehearsal, and it is the forerunner of what will happen in 2027. So prepare for the opposition taking over government in 2027 and saving Nigeria from collapse, both politically, economically, socially, and otherwise. We are collapsing. What else is remaining for Nigeria except to collapse?
Well, one of
so
the significant...
what I am saying is that we did appreciably well within the context of what we found ourselves. And I'm happy that Rauf Adegochola is still alive. And I'm happy that Najim is still alive. He was chased away from his own polling unit. So,
Well, Mr.
when we
Okonkwo,
are alive, then we will face the national election in 2027.
it's debatable that a mere 17,000 plus is can be described as creditably well performance. We'll see, one of the things that you also said is it takes time to build. Your party also, performed abysmally in the last Ekiti off-cycle election. We'll see how much time you have and you need, to improve upon your performance ahead of 2027. But we must anchor at this point. Mr. Kenneth Okonkwo is a lawyer, public affairs analyst, columnist, and official spokesperson of His Excellency Atiku Abubakar and candidate of the African Democratic Congress for the 2027 election. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, we'll return after this break, during which we'll now look at all other parameters of the elections in Osun State in terms of the performance of INEC, logistics, and all the other related elements. That will be after this time out. Join us again.
I've been joined in the program by Mr. Lanre Arogundade, is the Executive Director, International Press Center. I was on ground at the Osun State governorship election for literally like a week. Mr. Lanre, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Jeffrey.
I hope you found time to breathe, sleep, eat, and rest.
Well, we've tried, and then we have to be here again. It's not over until it's over, right?
I always like to talk to CSOs and all of that because we have similar. We don't have a dog in the fight. The only dog in the fight we have is the process. The politician can debate over who wins and how credible was the entire process. So walk us through what your assessment will be. There are a couple of questions I have in mind, but let's have an overview of what you think and your rating of this exercise from everybody who played a role.
Everybody who played a role. Okay, I think we can start with, I prefer to start with the people. I think the Osun citizens, the voters, made a lot of difference in this particular election. We saw that in many respects. First was the fact that there were a lot of tension before the election due to activities of thugs, killings, threats, and all kinds of intimidation that tended to suggest that people might not come out, but they came out in reasonable numbers and quite early. Secondly, they were very, very political conscious. And I guess that we as civil society can claim, and media can claim some credit for this in terms of the amount of voter education we did before the election, particularly when it comes to citizens taking charge of the process. So what do I mean? And I point out two elements on this. The first was that in some of the polling units where they knew what the regulation was, that the voters list had to be pasted so that people can check their names. And in some places, the lists were not complete. And they demanded for a complete list until the presiding officers, provided them. In some other places, the number of ballot papers that were brought were not up to the number of registered voters that were displayed. In one instance, the number of registered voters was 2,300 and they brought ballot papers for 1,700. They insisted on having the complete number until voting would start. So in some places where voting were delayed, it was not because of late arrival of INEC officials or the material. It was because the citizens were vigilant enough to observe some abnormalities in the process. The second factor in terms of overview Because, now that the results have been declared, everybody is claiming credit. And it's normal. Success has many fathers, brothers, uncles, cousins. But when it comes to failures, everybody is trying to claim credit. But I also look at one factor that has not been talked about. The fact that in this election, the political parties invested properly in their agents, in their party agents, the agents and the polling units. And what do I mean by this? You also saw the party agents asking questions, and obviously they knew what they were doing. So it meant that this time around we didn't have transactional polling agents who were just there for the sake of the money. You had agents who followed the process, and obviously they had all the results in the polling units, and they had already shared this, with their parties, and that also helped civil society organizations monitoring the process to capture the entire process. I think we can talk about INEC, and we can say now that there's a kind of continuity in the performance of the INEC resident commissioner for Osun State, Mrs. Olutoyin Babalola, who was in charge in Ondo State, and did everything possible. So we had reasonable arrival of officials and materials in time, even though voting did not commence some places. Beavers performed above 70%, but there were still some technical challenges in some areas. But one other thing was the readiness of INEC in the state to respond, to questions and quickly take charge of, because she kept saying, anything you hear, let us know, so that we can, rectify that. And we were impressed with upload of results onto IREF, although there was a 1 hour break at a certain time, which created apprehension. And one would have expected for that kind of delay for a kind of statement or an explanation to have come out, because before the election we kept talking about the importance of crisis communication. Then the security agents, the deployment was massive, and there wasn't any polling unit that didn't have some security presence, and we can rate their performance as being good. The question we will be asking as we go along really is that how it was possible, despite such presence, for some political thugs to still manage to disrupt the process. In Ire, for example, the 2 polling units in Ogoluwa area, Oshogbo, where ballots box was actually snatched, with people came around firing gunshots into the air and disappearing with the ballot box, or the incidents in Modakeke and the rest of them. But again, in spite of that, the people still reconverged, and you saw the presence of party supporters at the collation center trying to observe the process, accompanying the polling officials when they were going to the collation centers on their motorbikes to say that, look, our votes must count. So that would be my own assessment of the security agents. And of course, the massive observation of the process by observers, international, local, helped to, constituted a form of oversight over this process. And as you are aware, at the level of the civil society network on electoral integrity, under the auspices of the European Union support to democratic governance in Nigeria, we did issue a midday statement where we articulated some of our observations about things that were not right and that should still be corrected as the election moved to the critical stages of vote counting and collation. So this will be my overall summary, and you can then begin to look at your own percentage in terms of who should be given the ultimate credit for what transpired in Osun State. For me, I think it's just the people who displayed a high level of political sophistication, and despite the closeness of the race, the fact that this was a 2-horse race, a direct rivalry between Accord Party and the APC, and turning out in large numbers as party supporters, you also didn't see clashes between them, at the polling unit. It was all about the fact that, oh, my vote will count. But I think we should also talk about, in terms of this overview, we cannot overlook, the factor of vote buying or attempted, vote buying. And you saw also what transpired in Osun, in the sense that, first, if you remove the element of vote buying, perhaps this margin would have been different. or maybe we won't have that number. But significantly too, a reasonable number of voters essentially voted their conscience. And you saw that in the kind of songs that were being sung when they saw where victory was going. The fact that you had people, poor people, young people, and we saw them on the streets even as we were returning yesterday. They were everywhere, saying that is shame to money. So for me, what we saw in Osun was the people's will triumphing over vote trading or over giving of money to voters. And if that becomes a trend in Nigeria, it will be very, very wonderful, where people can say, we just don't need this money, let's vote the way we want to vote. Well, we learned that some collected and still voted their their conscience, but then that's what it is. So a takeaway there really was that song Ojutiowo, shame to money. And I think this should really send some powerful signal to the political class that the people cannot be taken for granted. And I guess maybe the last general point I would like to make as far as the result was concerned is the fact that obviously performance counts for the people when it comes to elections. And because that was the major thing on the lips of people to say that, well, maybe in our community we never had a good major road for 20 years. And now, yes.
Yeah. We really have very limited time for this conversation. Yeah, we spoke to an Accord party. He said they didn't pay, they didn't buy votes. If we bring the APC and ADC here, they will say the same thing, that they didn't buy votes, they didn't sell votes or buy votes. So who did the buying and who did the paying? That's my question, because
maybe
because you were on ground, Mr. Robodade. You were on ground.
There was exchange of money, and it's not every time that you witness this thing physically. Don't forget that we're at the age of transfer of money and so on. So that there was no vote buying or vote trading. I think they should that would be a tale for the Marines. I mean, that's really not true. But the point really for me is that was not a significant factor in the outcome of this election. The significant factor was that the people felt that, look, this is not about money, it's about the fact that we want to vote according to our conscience because we believe this person has done this and has done that. That for me, it is really.
And that's where I want to trail this morning in relation to the expression of determination coming from the opposition parties who have seen this as, as something to replicate in the 2027 elections. We had to caution, our last guest who said if people want to be killed, then they will be killed because of what they have seen play out in Osun State, where the people demonstrated an unusual resolve to protect their votes. And I say this against the backdrop of what played out in the 2023 presidential election, where in some areas that votes would go a certain way, security operatives were deployed to intimidate the people such that they did not stay and guard their votes. From the standpoint of an election observer, are you worried for what may occur in 2027 in relation to how the people want to vote and what perhaps the establishment want to be the outcome?
Well, every contestant in an election, wants to win, whether they are in government, or not, and obviously being in government will be seen, as an advantage. And the idea of, voter suppression, because that's why I'm saying that no matter how much we celebrate this Osun election, we need to call out some unbecoming acts. A senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria openly saying that there should be killings or there should be reprisal killings. And even on election day, saying that they should check where people are voting so that they will know those who are not voting right. This kind of, and then you relate that to the level of security deployment, because these are some of the electoral functions of the security agencies, the protection of the vote, the secrecy, of the ballot. And I think in terms of the interference of political actors. This is one area where I think maybe the security agents, maybe their hands are tied. I can't really say. One of the things that the CP elections commissioner placed a typo said, for example, was that those who have no business, those who had no business in the Osun election should not be in the state. But we saw, what really happened. Except they can say, well, they had political, interest, but you had all these governors and all of them, being in the state. And indeed, I now realize that the kind of security tension was mainly because of all these VIPs. Their outriders, the sirens blowing, giving an atmosphere of something was going to happen. So when it comes to election, I think one area where we need more pressure and not just engagement is in terms of the impartiality of the security agencies. It's very, very important. Again, it was a factor in Osun State. Remember, before the election, even at the town hall that the Civil Society Network on Electoral Integrity held, the citizens came out and complained about the conduct of the Commissioner of Police in the state. So it became an issue. They kept emphasizing the fact that the police in the state was not neutral until the government now said, look, we're going to have a commissioner of police that will be in charge of the elections. So don't worry, even if you have issues with the commissioner of police in the state, that engagement needs to continue. And for me, what this should be for everybody, either state government, particularly the federal government, is that when things go well, you get the credit, even if you have partisan interest in the process. I've seen people comment, for Tinubu and every other thing. So the fact that, for example, you had problems with local government allocation to Osun State, and intimidation, rivalry between APC, because the process has been adjudged as free, as fair, and reflecting the wishes of the people, is getting credit. The federal government is getting credit. Everybody is getting credit. So it's only in the enlightened interest of those in power to understand that, look, it's all about progress, because everything we do today will be a template for tomorrow.
All right.
If you interfere, use security agents, the person that will take over, they will have justification. They will tell you, oh, this other person did it. So why are you now complaining?
Let's as we to wind up. My apologies, got the time. I just need to squeeze in this question as we wrap up. And if you can answer it in 30 seconds, I should say.
30 seconds.
Yeah, I know I called your attention and everyone's attention, and Yaga even made a release. At 6 p.m. or so, we had almost 7 p.m. We've had, that's less than 5 hours after the polling closed, we had about almost 70% of the results uploaded. But from 8:42 p.m. till I think about past 10 or so, we didn't see any result uploaded. And I did ask, I said, has INEC provided an explanation? Because these are the things that affect confidence of people and trigger anxiety. Was there any response from INEC?
Well, there's been no response so far, and I guess INEC itself will still come out with its own statements or its own assessment of how this election went, and we're going to be looking forward to an explanation for that, and we're using this opportunity to demand for that explanation, because it's very, very important. This is just one state. This is just a state election. A general election that could make a whole lot of difference, given the background of 2023. So we will be asking that question, and we expect INEC itself to provide an explanation. The point I made earlier is that anytime you have such gap in uploading, you have to come out with a statement. Election is a 24/7 thing. People virtually didn't sleep. So we haven't really gotten an answer to that, although I can check. I would say probably not from my own point of view.
All right, Mr. Arobinade, thank you so much. We expect INEC to give us that explanation, because the speed at which upload was happening was super impressive until 8:42 p.m.
Yes, it was super impressive.
Well, then suddenly they made us everybody started thinking about funny things, and it's not good for their reputation.
But we also had a lot of network challenges in Osun State.
At least let them explain. Let them explain to us.
Yes, let them. I'm not holding.
Keeping quiet is not good.
They need to. Thank you, Jeffrey.
Larry Arogu, that is the Executive Director of the National Press Center. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
All right, guys. You know, I was just thinking that this election, you know, who is the biggest winner in my view, besides the Osun people and Governor Adeleke winning re-election, is President Tinubu. Whether it was the APC guy that won, would have worked for him. Adeleke says he's going to
work for him. But it all depends on the measure, you know, that we see committed to the APC in the presidential election from Osun State, which is, you know, going to be very significant because we've seen a very healthy turnout of voters in this Osun election.
Yeah, they are super determined people, and we must commend them, despite the killings and the fightings. But let's get to Kelly or Bukola, who has this one. The trends.
By the way, the INEC system, maybe just had to take a breather around 8 to 10, just to rest a bit.
No, they're not taking it. No, there's nothing like that. No, they can't take a breather.
No, I know.
They must explain what happened for over 2 hours because we were monitoring it back to back. It was super impressive. Every time you refer it, there's something new. I mean, you know what it means that 5 hours into an election, 70% of the election results have come in. And then suddenly there's silence for about 300 and something polling units.
Trust me, Nigerians are not going to take that in 2027.
After the trauma of 2023. INEC is going to run out of town.
But hey, let's get to the trends, guys. I see some of those videos. Osun voters very resilient and resolute. They're escorting their votes. I wish, let's get to see some of those videos. Osun voters, you can see them there. I mean, it's a convoy. Oh my word!
They were so conscious that the driver was taking calls. They told him he can't be taking calls. Yes, they say you cannot be taking calls.
Wow.
Now, guys, this is very significant because it is a part of our electoral process that has oftentimes been mired in controversy and amid calls for, you know, this part of our electoral process to be more transparent and open to the media, such that we know what happens at this very critical time when results are moving from perhaps the ward collation center or maybe to the state collation center. And so what the Osun people have done here is very significant. What we do not now know is how this will play out if Nigerians demonstrate this level of commitment to this part of the electoral process in the 2027 presidential election, guarding their votes by themselves as it is being transported to
collation center.
Nigerians should take a cue from Osun people and learn a lot. Let's take the next video. Osun residents standing outside INEC Collation Center, chanting, perhaps we are just give us some sort of upside. Let's just feel the pulse of what they're doing.
I'll leave that to Bukola, please.
Well, you know, Mr. Ogudadi has assisted us with the translation earlier on when he said, shame on money, 50,000, shame on money. And so what they're trying to say, you know, by extension is that, you know, the purpose of money was defeated in this election because the will of the people prevailed. And in other parts of Osun State, you know, earlier in the day when victory had been declared in favor of the Accord Party, we also heard them say, what's that again? That's, you know, money has been wasted, 50,000 money has been wasted. So that was another chance
if you're watching us around the world and you've had a very terrible image of Nigerians, this is to tell you that, you know what, change that mindset or that narrative, because there are people in this same country where your money would not change or buy their conscience. So I think this paints a good picture of Nigeria, and I like the fact that despite the money being used perhaps to induce voters, they saw it and they rejected it, because the immediate translation of that is that shame on your money. This is about our future. This is about our nation. This is about our state, Osun State. So I like this image about Nigeria, and I think we can project.
So there are three more videos we have to look at. Let's look at the surprise visit by former President Olusegun Obasanjo to the governor.
Yeah.
Governor-elect now. It's incumbent and governor-elect. So I don't think he knew Obasanjo was coming, Professor Obasanjo was coming. And Baba just showed
That
up.
can be very unpredictable.
Yes.
Now, this is as much a congratulatory visit and a political statement.
And the governor comes out dancing.
Because it looks like former President Olusegun Obasanjo always looks for opportunities to express his dislike for the ruling party in many different ways. By the way, we must also point out his very chummy relationship as well with the opposition in Oyo State. We see him, visit that state during commissioning. We've seen him also demonstrate support for the presidential candidate of the NDC, the Nigerian Democratic Congress. And so this is very significant and should be watched ahead of the 2027 election.
All right, let's move to the next one where this video came out. It's online showing how, I think at about midnight or later hours of the night, when some of the, I think, APC governors, according to us alleged, were leaving town when it was clear that the coast wasn't clear for them. And people were
I like that. It was clear that the coast wasn't clear.
Yeah, because by now they would have been the one dancing, not the devil Adeleke.
Indeed.
Yeah. So people can get that video.
This was about 2:30 a.m. I believe, Jeffrey.
The senators and the governors leaving Osun State at midnight, after the things have gone against their will. Well, I don't know whether that.
Why do politicians like the night time so much?
Well, because that's when you strategize. That's so yes. So those are the convoys. So you can imagine
the convoy,
the logistics, the aids, the spendings that went through all of this. I am hoping that one day this will just stop. It's unnecessary.
And according to reports, there were about 11 governors in Osun State.
I feel that when they've gone to do the final rally and campaign, go to your state and run your affairs. Maybe you get one or two persons to go and give whoever you're supporting that moral support. But having this avalanche just shows you that, look, when the people are determined, no force, no intimidation, no heavyweight can change anything. But guys,
indeed, we have one more to touch before we go.
And that's Abuja.
Heavy downpour flood parts of Wuse 2 in Abuja, leaving cars submerged.
When I saw this video initially, I thought, no, this is not Nigeria. But well, it is.
It's very worrying.
Wuse area in Abuja, I think over the weekend, I think somewhere on Saturday or there.
I've never seen this kind of flood in Abuja.
Never too.
Never.
I doubted it initially, but
not in a long time.
It's been confirmed.
Some people are accusing the minister of allocating land to people to reclaim the canal. I'm not too familiar with this area, so I can't really say. But it looks like there was a blockade. And that, water will always find its path.
Yeah.
You can't stop water. So heavy rains, this is what we're used to in Lagos. Not Abuja.
Certainly not Abuja. I wonder if this has anything to do with the drainage system in this part of Abuja.
Yeah.
But we'll get more clarity, as we continue our coverage and broadcast of programs on Channels Television. Our colleagues, by the way, from the Sunrise team, they're on standby to bring you more, and this is where we touch down on this first day of the week.
The minister is on holiday, so he's going to come back. I saw pictures of him enjoying his life. So he has work to do when he comes back. But guys, that's it on the program. Thank you for your time and company. Sunrise Daily is up next at the top of the hour, and Jeffrey Ozongo. Bye-bye.
We'll be back again tomorrow. I am Bukola Koka.
From Lagos, Nigeria, I am Kelly Egiga. Have a productive day. Bye.